It's me, Ashley, and we're gonna go way, way back to the very beginning of Caitlin's life. So, Caitlin is my daughter. She is 6 years old, and she has several disabilities, classifying her as a special needs child. So, we're gonna go back to the very beginning of her story. That way, everybody kind of has a better understanding of where we've been and how far we've come. Okay, so going back to July of 2013, Caitlin was born. I'm not going to say her birth date, just to kind of keep a little privacy. So she was born in July of 2013. I didn't have any complications with the pregnancy other than, like, of course, morning sickness and stuff. But it was a good pregnancy. There wasn't any complications. I chose to be induced. So on her due date, we scheduled the induction. Is that how you say it? I scheduled to be induced on her actual due date. So we went in, I was induced, had a good labor, I had an epidural. There were no complications during labor and delivery. She came out. She was perfect. Absolutely perfect. She was 7 pounds, 5 ounces, my biggest baby. I have little babies, y'all. I have tiny babies. So she was my biggest baby. She's the third child. And we couldn't have been more excited for her to be a part of our family and to welcome her and include her in our family as the newest addition. Her big brother and her big sister were super excited, super proud. They loved her. There was nothing in the delivery, nothing in the newborn, screenings, nothing that would have foretold us about our journey with her. So everything in the hospital looks fine. She passes her newborn screenings, passes the hearing test, all that stuff. And we go home and everything was fine. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary to us. Being our third child, we kind of sort of had this whole mom, dad, newborn thing kind of figured out. So we just went with it. There was absolutely nothing that seemed any different than our other two healthy children. So we're going to fast forward just a little bit. Caitlin was 7 weeks old. We were at a friend's house, and my kids, we just went over there after school one day, and my kids were hanging out. My husband had just started a new job. That's important for later details in the story. My husband started a new job. We were at a friend's house after school, so that my kids could play and have a little bit of normalcy, because at this time we were in between houses. We had moved out of one house, and then because of circumstances, I'm not going to go into details there, but we moved out of one house and we were staying in a small, tiny travel trailer in my husband's grandparents' front yard. We are very, very thankful that we were able to do that and they were able to help us out a little bit. But because my kids didn't have any of their toys, or space was very limited, my husband's grandparents live in a very small 2-bedroom house that is big enough for just them to stay in. So unless my kids wanted to play outside, I kind of gave them a little bit of normal kid things by going over to a friend's house that we were over at all the time. And they got to play. They got to play with toys and their friend, and it was just a time for them during this time that was just normal. So we were over there after school, say, between 3 and 4, and Caitlin is 7 weeks old, and she was taking a nap. She was laying on the couch. Me and my friend were sitting right beside her, listening to the kids play, having conversation, normal mom things. So Caitlin started acting funny. She was acting odd. She kind of woke up, but then everything was focused to one side. So instead of her like waking up like she normally would, she was waking up and everything was turned to one side. And when you think about seizures, one, I had never experienced a seizure before in my life. I haven't personally seen one. I have never had one. I always thought that seizures were like full body convulsions, right? And that's not the case. Not every seizure is a full body. It's not, every seizure is not convulsions. This is something that I have learned along our journey, but Caitlin was stuck like this. Her head was turned, her arm was kind of drawn up, and her eyes were cut over to that same side. And it was different. It was odd. It was something out of the normal for her. And so I pick her up and I'm holding my tiny, 7-week-old, and I'm trying to get her attention. I'm calling her name, Caitlin, Caitlin, Caitlin. And my friend goes, Ashley, I think she's having a seizure. I was like, oh, this is what a seizure's like? Oh my goodness, my 7-week-old baby is having a seizure. So she has the local emergency room number in her phone. So she calls them and she says, hey, I have a friend over at my house. She has a 7-week-old baby and we think she's having a seizure. What do we need to do? So they advised her if we could put her in her car seat and bring her up to the hospital and get her checked out and seen in the emergency room. So that's what we did. I remember driving and my friend sitting in the back seat. I remember calling my husband several times on his cell phone and he didn't answer. And so I left him a voicemail. Letting him know, hey, I just want you to know, we think that Caitlin might have had a seizure and we're taking her to the emergency room right now. I can't get a hold of you. At that time, I don't even know that I could recall the name of his place of employment, because it was just so new. So I didn't know how to look, not how, I knew how to, but I didn't know what to look up in order to get the office's number. So I'm kind of in this, not panic, and it's not like fight or flight, right? It's just this like emergency, right? This urgent kind of mindset. Like this was the fastest way I knew to contact my husband, so I was going to contact him that way. I didn't. I was trying not to panic. I was trying to stay calm. My friend's in the back seat just talking to Caitlin, making sure that she knows that we're here, because we don't know what's going on. So we get to the emergency room. We check in. They were like, oh, you were the ones that we talked to on the phone. I said, yes. So they get us back. At this time, the emergency room doctors and nurses kind of just don't believe us that she had a seizure. They took some blood work, tried to get a urine sample. Do you know how hard it is to get a urine sample on a baby that small? Or any child that can't pee in a cup? Sorry for, blunt terms, but they put this thing on that's called a U bag and it sticks to them and they try to collect urine. It wasn't successful. She did go to the bathroom while we were there, but it wasn't successful in collecting any amount that they could get any test results from. So we're in the emergency room for a little while, and then the doctor comes in and tells us that, well, if what she had was a seizure, most kids have a seizure. We call it one and done. Then it's probably just an isolated event and no worries. So you're good to go home. If there comes anything on her blood test or anything like that, we'll let you know. That was it. That was absolutely it. I didn't know any different. I obviously do now, but I didn't know any different at the time. So I thought that the doctor saying one and done was true. It was accurate. It was good medical advice, okay? Because it was a doctor. Even though I didn't have a whole lot of trust in him, because like I said, he kind of treated us like we were dumb. Like we made it up. Like what we knew about my daughter and the normal behavior and this being odd was just in our minds. Like we were overreacting. I wasn't overreacting. This was my third child. I have never had a child up to that point do what she did. Okay? So up until her first seizure, I'm going to talk more about other seizures. We're just going to talk about the first seizure today. Up to this point, Caitlin was nursing. I talk with my hands, so I'm down here using my fingers. Caitlin was nursing. She was nursing just fine, nursing great. She was holding her head up. She was looking around. She was all the developmental milestones up till 7 weeks she was meeting, and then the next, we had our 2-month doctor's appointment scheduled. She was growing just fine from her checkups previously. There was no health concerns, none whatsoever, that would have ever pointed us to Caitlin being the way she is today, or that pointed us to the seizure, the very first seizure. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Well, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I know that it's going to moved slowly, but I needed to establish that Caitlin was a normal infant. She was a normal newborn. She was reaching milestones, and that at 7 weeks old, she had her very first seizure. There was nothing that led us to believe that it was going to happen. And then there was nothing that led us to believe she was going to have another one. But that's not the way it worked. And she has had several. Probably way more than we can really count or wrap our heads around. So that's it for today's video. Please, if you have watched my other video, my first video, and you're watching this one again, please subscribe to my channel. It's the red button that's right here below. And make sure the notification bell is turned on. Also, if you could give this video a big thumbs up and like it, that would be great. And if you comment in the comment section down below, I am responding to comments. So that's it for today. Y'all have a blessed day.